I didn't even get a chance to ask why. Everything was vague, mechanical. I was told my role had been reevaluated, that there had been a strategic shift in internal placement, and that I was being reassigned temporarily to remote reporting. They even handed me a pre-filled envelope with my apartment key and a train pass already topped up. I'd been ghost moved. Tokyo, one of the most competitive branches in the company, and I'd been plucked from it like a post-it someone decided didn't stick right. I packed my things quietly, a notebook, a plant I never watered enough, a few pens that weren't mine. No one made eye contact, even my manager, the same guy who once sent me 2 a.m. Slack messages asking for urgent feedback, pretended he had to step out for a call. So I walked out. No goodbye lunch, no gift bag, not even a passive-aggressive card. Just me, a cardboard box, and the faint buzz of automatic doors sliding shut behind me. The weirdest part? My ID still worked. I checked, just out of spite. It beeped green at the exit gate like nothing had changed. But everything had. Back at my tiny apartment, my old place, because the one near the office was corporate housing, I dropped the box onto my futon and sat on the floor. It felt surreal, like I'd dreamed the last 2 years in Tokyo, and someone had just erased my save file. No calls came in, no emails followed. It was like I had never existed in that branch. I called my direct report voicemail, messaged our team group chat, no response. I even pinged the intern I once helped fix his resume, read, no reply. Whatever had happened was sealed tight. At first, I tried to be rational. Maybe it was a mistake. A department reshuffle. Someone ticked the wrong box. But when Thursday passed and then Friday, and still silence, I started noticing the little things. Like how my name had disappeared from our internal directory. Like how my company inbox bounced back every message I sent. Like how the company social account unfollowed me. Okay, I'm kidding about the last one. Maybe. But still, this was no clerical error. I'd been erased, not fired, not demoted, just deleted. And I couldn't shake the feeling that something had been quietly building behind the scenes before that Wednesday morning. Late that night, as the city buzzed softly through the paper-thin walls of my apartment, I pulled out an old shoebox of receipts and business cards, looking for clues. Nothing. Just records of a life I apparently wasn't living anymore. Then my doorbell rang. It was close to midnight. Midnight in Tokyo isn't exactly prime social hour, especially not for someone who barely knows her neighbors and hasn't ordered takeout in 2 weeks. I sat still on the floor, heart racing, like whoever was outside could hear it thumping. The doorbell rang again. Then came the knock. Soft, hesitant, almost embarrassed. I stood slowly, peeked through the peephole, and blinked. It was my old landlady, Mrs. Ueno. She looked smaller than I remembered, bundled in a thick coat 2 sizes too big, her salt and pepper hair tucked under a faded floral scarf. Her eyes darted up and down the hallway like she wasn't sure she should be there at all. I opened the door cautiously. Mrs. Ueno? Her eyes met mine, and immediately welled with tears. Oh, good, you're still here," she whispered in Japanese, voice trembling. "I didn't know if you'd moved already." "I kind of did," I said, "but I'm back." She stood there, shaking, clutching her purse like it held something alive. Then suddenly she reached into her coat and pulled out a thick, rubber-banded bundle of letters, some clean, some torn, most yellowing at the edges. And then she burst into tears. Not polite, single-tear movie crying. No, this was guilt poured into the street crying. Full body, clutch her heart sobs. She held out the bundle with both hands, bowing slightly, like she was offering an apology instead of paper. I took them without speaking, already feeling the weight of them before I even saw a name. "I didn't want to. I was told I'm sorry," she stammered. "Wait, hold on. What are these?" Her eyes, puffy and pink, searched mine for forgiveness she hadn't earned yet. "They're yours," she whispered. "They came months ago. Many. But I didn't give them to you." I just stared. Letters? Who even gets letters anymore? I flipped through the bundle. Postmarks from within Japan. Some from Tokyo proper, others from places I didn't recognize. All addressed to me, all with my name. Some in printed envelopes, others handwritten, a few with return S's that had been smudged or scratched out. "Why didn't you give them to me?" I asked softly. Mrs. Ueno looked away, clutching her coat tighter. "I was asked not to." A man came, suit, polite, but very clear. He said they might confuse you. Said you had a new address anyway. Said it was best they be held here. I felt like I was watching a scene from a movie, but one of those slow, aching dramas where the twist doesn't punch you, it seeps into your skin. A man? I said. What did he look like? I don't remember, only that he showed me a company card, told me you'd been reassigned, and these letters were irrelevant. I sat down on the floor, the bundle still in my hands. Why now? I asked. Why bring them now? Because, she whispered, he came again last week, asked if I still had them. I told him no. I lied. But I saw something in his eyes, like he was looking for proof. She shook her head. And then, yesterday, I saw your name on the building directory again. I knew. I knew you'd come back, and I couldn't hold them anymore. I thanked her, quietly, genuinely. She bowed again, apologized at least 5 more times, and then shuffled away down the hall. I closed the door, locked it, and sat with the letters. One had a bright red stamp that read, "Personal and Confidential." Another had a wax seal I had to cut open with a butter knife. Most looked ordinary, but something told me they weren't. I picked the top one, postmarked 5 weeks ago, handwritten return address, neat lettering, no name. I opened it. Inside, one sheet of paper, no greeting, no signature, just typed text. They moved you because you were asking the wrong questions to the right people. I stared at the sentence for a long time, then opened another. You were right about the vendor discrepancy, but someone else took credit and turned it into leverage. Another letter. You'll be contacted by someone from the internal board. Don't trust the first offer. I dropped the bundle, sat back, stared at the wall. Someone had been trying to warn me, to protect me, and all this time, the messages had been sitting in a dusty cupboard in my old landlady's hallway, suffocating in silence. I laughed, not because it was funny, but because it was the only thing that made sense in a moment that didn't. I had just been handed a conspiracy in stationery. I didn't sleep that night. I tried, believe me, I tried. But have you ever fallen asleep with a pile of anonymous letters whispering treachery into your carpet? Yeah, didn't think so. I sat cross-legged on the floor, surrounded by envelopes like they were playing cards, fanned out in some occult pattern only HR managers and boardroom ghosts could decipher. The more I read, the clearer it became. Someone inside the Tokyo branch had been trying to help me. Quietly, carefully, using analog mail like we were in a Cold War spy flick. And someone else, someone higher up, had been trying just as hard to make sure I never saw a single word. There were mentions of budget irregularities, suspicious client billing, travel expense patterns that didn't add up. A few notes even cited internal audits that were conveniently shelved indefinitely. No names, just roles. Head of procurement, VP of regional ops, the one from the conference in Osaka. One line stood out in a jittery, frantic kind of handwriting. If you're reading this, it means she cracked. She. Who was she? I didn't know whether to feel terrified or flattered, but I did know this. Someone had trusted me with a mess big enough to bury me. Or elevate me. I just hadn't realized I'd been standing on a trapdoor this whole time. Around 4 a.m., I made tea I didn't drink and stood barefoot in the kitchen, holding one of the letters like it might combust if I looked away. I needed help. Not a friend, not a coworker. Someone smart, someone discreet, someone who owed me. And that's when I thought of Mina. Oh, Mina. She and I had worked together years ago in the Seoul office, before either of us had real titles, when we were just two caffeine-charged analysts who stayed late for the sake of data integrity and bonding over broken printers. One night, she'd confided in me about a mistake she'd made in a supply chain model, a mistake that could have tanked a quarter's earnings if it hit the report. I helped her fix it, quietly, took no credit, never mentioned it again. She'd cried in the elevator after, swore she'd repay me one day. And now, I needed her to cash in. I found her contact on an old messaging app, the kind we used back when corporate chat policies didn't read like surveillance manuals. I sent a short message. Mina, I need help. It's sensitive. Can't use company channels. Call me. Now if you can. She replied in less than 5 minutes. Secure line or signal? Signal. The call came through almost instantly. Her voice, tired, raspy, but unmistakably hers. You sound like you're being hunted. Not hunted, I said, but maybe airbrushed out of history. Silence. Then tell me everything. I didn't give her the whole story. Just enough. The transfer. The silence. The letters. The phrases that made no sense unless you were inside the system. She listened, interrupted only once, to swear under her breath when I read one of the notes aloud. Finally, she said, "Do you know who in Tokyo had the most to lose if you kept asking questions?" "I have theories." "I don't want theories. I want a name." "I don't have one." She exhaled sharply. "Okay, here's what I can do. I still have a few favors with our internal compliance lead. The one in Singapore. If something's gone off record, she'll see the red flags, even if they've tried to bury them. Mina, this could blow back on you." "I owe you," she said, flatly. "Besides, I've been itching to stick it to someone since they moved our floor next to legal." I smiled for the first time all night. She asked for copies of the letters. I scanned them in using my phone, carefully blacking out my address just in case. Sent them encrypted. Double-checked the file names. Renamed one of them Grandma's Banana Bread Recipe just for good measure. Before we hung up, she said something I didn't expect. "You're not paranoid. If they went through that much trouble to hide those letters, they're scared of what you know." I blinked. "You really think so?" "No, I know so," she said. "And if they're scared, that means you're holding something powerful." After the call, I sat by the window as dawn began to bloom over the skyline, soft pink light cutting through steel gray buildings, and for the first time in days, I didn't feel erased. I felt dangerous. By the time the sun fully broke over the city, I'd taped every letter to the wall. They looked like a collage of warning signs, dozens of puzzle pieces taped side by side in a language that felt more coded than corporate. If anyone had walked into my apartment right then, they'd think I was solving a murder or starting one. But I wasn't paranoid. At least, not anymore. I was building a timeline. Between the postmarks, the writing styles, and the references buried in each line, I started seeing patterns. The earliest letters hinted at small concerns, confused billing entries, misplaced approvals. But as the months passed, the tone changed. It got sharper, more direct, like the sender realized no one was listening and they were running out of time. One letter referred to a Phase 4 clearance transfer that had been mishandled deliberately. Another listed a shipping ID I didn't recognize, just a long string of numbers and letters followed by, "Find this. If it lands in Jakarta, they'll pin it on someone else. Probably you." "Excuse me?" "Probably me." Now I wasn't just confused, I was implicated. And that's when I realized something I hadn't yet said out loud. This wasn't just about a mistake. Someone had set me up. And I had nearly played my role perfectly. Silent, removed, quietly reassigned like a well-behaved shadow. Only they forgot one thing. I read everything. That afternoon, Mina messaged me again. Something weird. Compliance flagged multiple rerouted communications tied to your ID, but not by you. Meaning? Meaning someone was redirecting internal memos meant for you. Since July. How? They tagged you as external contractor, limited clearance in the system. You weren't on distribution anymore. That's why no one answered me. Exactly. That explained the silence, the sudden cold shoulders, my vanishing presence in the shared drives. If the system marked me as an outsider, most colleagues would think I was gone, or worse, someone to avoid. Mina wasn't done. I pulled the access logs. Guess who last edited your profile? Don't say Dan. Bingo. Dan, my former manager. Clipboard Dan. HR's golden retriever with just enough middle management charm to make you think he cared. The same Dan who didn't even look at me when I left. Now, Dan was the one who had pulled the plug. I had questions. Too many to text. So I did something a little reckless. I booked a walk-in appointment at the co-working space downtown where I knew he sometimes held mentorship coffees. Don't ask how I knew that. Let's just say Tokyo LinkedIn is more transparent than people think. I showed up in neutral tones. Casual but crisp. No office ID, no badge, no sign I was anything but a curious freelancer with a laptop and a weird craving for bitter lattes. He was already there, wearing his usual fleece vest over a button-up, sipping overpriced espresso like it was a character trait. I slid into the seat across from him. He blinked. I smiled. "Hi, Dan." He cleared his throat. "Wow, I didn't expect. How long's it been?" I leaned forward. 3 weeks since I was yanked out of the Tokyo branch without warning. But who's counting? He smiled too tightly. "Well, you know how restructures go." "Oh, I do. Especially the kind where one manager personally edits someone's internal access and removes them from all comms." His face didn't change, but his left hand stopped stirring his coffee. "You shouldn't be here," he said, quieter now. I kept my tone light. "Funny, that's what your emails probably said about me too. I don't know what you think you found." "Oh, Dan," I interrupted gently. "I'm not here to argue, so I'm here to give you a chance." "A chance for what?" "To be remembered as the guy who almost buried the truth, but didn't." He leaned back. "You're bluffing." "Am I?" I pulled out one of the letters, just one, and laid it on the table like a card in a poker game. He didn't touch it, but he read it. I saw the color shift in his face. And then, quietly, he said something I didn't expect. "She promised me no one would get hurt." "Who?" But he just shook his head. "She said it was just cleanup, that they'd move you quietly, let you land somewhere else, that the letters were misguided." I leaned in. "Dan, you were used, and now your name's all over the access logs." He looked away. And in that moment, I saw it. Yes, but fear too. Not of me, of who else was involved. I stood. "You can keep pretending this is above your pay grade, or you can help me fix it." He didn't speak. But as I turned to leave, he muttered, just loud enough, "Check the Osaka vendor files. Q4 reports. Look for the red folders." Got it. Dan had cracked, and now the unraveling had begun. I practically ran out of the co-working space, not because I was scared, but because I was charged. That kind of adrenaline doesn't come from coffee or exercise. It's the kind that only hits when someone finally confirms that you're not crazy. You're not imagining the shadows. You are being followed, but now you know why. Osaka vendor files, Q4 reports, red folders. It sounded simple enough, except nothing in corporate file structures is ever simple, especially not when someone doesn't want you to find something. Back home, I opened my personal backup drive, the one I wasn't supposed to have, technically, and began searching. I used to keep my own offline copies of anything I worked on that showed even a whiff of inconsistency. Not for blackmail. Just because, well, let's just say Tokyo offices aren't known for transparency, and I trust Word docs more than I trust live dashboards. And sure enough, buried inside a folder labeled MISKI 2023 Q4 Adjustments, I found them. 3 red-colored folders. Digitally read, not actual folders. But still, it felt symbolic. Inside were PDFs, spreadsheets, meeting transcripts. At first glance, they looked routine. Vendor contracts, invoice approvals, inventory assessments. But I've been in this game too long to miss a trail when it's bleeding. There were discrepancies. Numbers that didn't align across versions, approval signatures that didn't match, and one very specific file name that repeated across different documents, AOSCA Travel Itun 93X. I opened it. It was a breakdown of travel reimbursements tied to a vendor contract that had never gone through full approval. Flights, hotels, event space rentals in Osaka, all billed under a program that, as far as I knew, had been shut down in Q3. And guess whose name was autofilled in the internal review field? Mine. I didn't approve this. I didn't even know about this. But there it was, my name, tied to a 2.4 million yen expense chain that, on paper, looked like I had greenlit it with a smile and a thumbs up emoji. I sat back in my chair and whispered to no one. They were going to pin it on me. The letters made sense now. The timing. The silence. They hadn't just reassigned me, they were repositioning me. Lining me up like a chess piece to take a fall I didn't even see coming. The landlady, the letters, Dan's panic, Mina's flagged emails, all of it pointed to one conclusion. Someone at the Tokyo branch, possibly higher, was laundering approvals and needed me out of the way before audit season came around. Except I didn't stay gone, and now I was staring at the thread that could unravel all of it. I called Mina again. This time, she answered on the first ring. "I hope you're sitting down," I said. "Why, what did you find?" I sent her the red folders. All of them. In a zip file labeled Cherry Blossom Mess. A beat later, her breath caught. "This isn't just bad. This is criminal. These are forged chain of command approvals." "Exactly. And your name is everywhere." "Exactly." Silence. "Then we have to go above them." I knew what she meant. We couldn't go to local HR. Not Tokyo compliance, not even regional ops. We had to go above the people who could bury things, straight to someone who didn't have a stake in the cover-up. There was only one place left, the Global Advisory Board. Now, before you roll your eyes, yes, I know, that sounded ridiculous. Me going to the Global Board? The shadowy room of power where everyone's title is either Senior Global or chief something officer? But I had a name. One of the letters mentioned it in passing. If things go wrong, reach out to Haruto Watanabe. He owes you. He won't say it, but he does. Haruto Watanabe, a name I hadn't heard in years. He was a former client liaison, someone I'd helped navigate a politically sticky training restructure in Kyoto once. It wasn't glamorous, but I'd saved him a lot of embarrassment in a potentially expensive lawsuit. I still had his business card, tucked into a copy of Kafka on the Shore that I hadn't opened in ages. The irony wasn't lost on me. I drafted a message. Kept it simple. Subject: request for confidential consultation. Haruto-san, I hope you're well. I find myself in a situation that may involve unauthorized financial assignments and compromised internal systems, some of which appear tied to my name without consent. I'd never reach out if it weren't serious. If there's any possibility of a conversation off record, I would greatly appreciate it. With respect, I hit send and waited. 2 hours later, he responded. Subject: re-request for confidential consultation. Meet me Friday, 9 a.m., Marinucci Cafe, corner window booth. No paper, no laptops, just you. My hands trembled. He didn't ask for details, didn't say who is this, or what are you talking about, which meant he already knew. And suddenly, all the lights in my apartment felt too bright. I turned them off, sat back, and whispered, "It's on." Friday morning came cloaked in a light drizzle, the kind Tokyo specializes in, soft and gray, like the city is half apologizing for whatever is about to happen. I dressed simply. Dark jeans, a navy sweater, and a jacket I could disappear in if I needed to. I didn't carry a bag. No laptop, no paper. Just my phone and a small umbrella. Haruto had been very clear. Just you. The Marinucci Cafe was upscale but quiet. A place where people came to look important while drinking coffee that cost more than a train ticket. I spotted him immediately. Corner booth, crisp charcoal suit, collar open, no tie. Same calm expression he'd always had. The man could read a 5-alarm fire like it was a bedtime story. He nodded when he saw me and stood just slightly, enough to acknowledge me, but not enough to draw attention. I slid into the booth across from him. "You look tired," he said in Japanese, his voice soft but firm. "I've had a strange month," I replied, then added in English. "I wasn't sure you'd respond." "I wasn't sure I'd be allowed to," he said, switching languages with a wry smile, but curiosity beat caution. He stirred his coffee once, then let the spoon rest on the saucer. "You said unauthorized financial assignments. You didn't mention Osaka or Dan." So he really knew. My stomach twisted. "Then you know this is bigger than me." Haruto nodded slowly. "Bigger than you, but not bigger than us." I waited. He took a sip, then leaned in slightly. "Here's what you need to understand. The Global Advisory Board doesn't act on whispers. It acts on liability." "I'm a liability now?" "No. They are, or will be if what you've uncovered becomes part of a shareholder audit." He pulled out a slim phone, not a personal one, a company-issued black rectangle with a mirrored screen. He tapped once, showed me a message for just 3 seconds, long enough to read it. "Tokyo Regional flagged, internal ops compromised, requesting informal brief from trusted contact, secure line only." I looked up at him. "You sent that?" "No," he said. "I received it from someone I trust. Someone you might trust, too." That shook me. He continued. "They've been watching the Tokyo branch for 6 months. Vendor fraud, expense laundering, strategic demotions, but nothing actionable until you." I exhaled hard. "They were trying to make me the fall person." "They almost succeeded," he said, "but they underestimated your curiosity." I laughed quietly. "That's one way to put it." He leaned back. "You have 2 choices now. 1, go back to your quiet reassignment, let the letters disappear again, let Dan get promoted to a non-role in Bangkok, and carry on. And the second, you give a statement, not public, not recorded, a detailed off-the-record, internally secured account of every file, gas letter, and interaction you've had. And then," he smiled faintly, "then I send it to someone who can make decisions." I didn't need to ask who. The Global Advisory Board operated in shadows, but they had influence most executives only dreamed of. And if Haruto was this calm, it meant he already knew the endgame. "You're not asking for evidence? You already sent it," he said. "Mina forwarded the folders, under her personal flag." I stared. "You're working with her?" "We all work with each other, in ways," he said cryptically. And Mina, she's tired of cleaning up the messes of men who wear fleece vests and think no one reads fine print. I snorted. Dan's gonna love that one. Haruto finished his coffee. Write the statement. No emotion, just facts. Think of it as closure, your version of events, documented where it matters. He stood and offered his hand. As I shook it, he said quietly, "Most people don't realize the board is watching until they're already on the record." Then he walked out, leaving the spoon still resting on the saucer, perfectly still. That night, I wrote it, the full statement. I started with the forced transfer, the silence, the letters, the red folders, the vendor discrepancies, the meeting with Dan. Every moment where the pattern became a map. It was clinical, but truthful. I stripped it of anger, left only evidence and timestamps. I attached images of the letters with metadata intact, highlighted who I believed had motive, who had access, and who had manipulated the system to make me disappear. I didn't ask for justice. I just told the truth. I sent it via the link Haruto provided, encrypted, double-verified, time-locked. When I clicked submit, the screen went dark for 3 seconds. Then a single line appeared. "Thank you. You are now on record." I stared at that line for a long time. Then I shut the laptop and turned off the lights. And for the first time since that knock at my door, I slept. When I woke up, the city was blanketed in fog. You know that kind of thick Tokyo morning where even the trains seem to whisper instead of roar? That was today. The kind of quiet that usually says something is about to shift. I checked my phone. No texts, no missed calls, no new letters taped to the door. Good. And weird. By noon, I was pacing in my apartment, rereading the statement I'd already submitted, as if the truth might have changed overnight. It hadn't, but I needed to keep moving. So I went for a walk. The streets felt sharper, like they were listening. I half expected someone in a gray suit to trail behind me. No one did, but my nerves didn't care. Then, sometime around 2 p.m., Mina messaged. "Check your inbox, don't reply here." I rushed home. There it was, one email, no sender name, just a masked address ending in @oversight.secure.global. Subject line, "You have been seen." Okay, creepy, but also validating. Inside, "Your submission was received and is under review. No further action is required at this time. You are advised not to discuss this matter with any current or former employees unless explicitly cleared. You are not under investigation. You are not being removed. You are being considered. Global oversight." That last line hit differently. You are being considered. It felt like I'd just been inducted into some quiet, corporate version of witness protection, but with better formatting and zero face-to-face interaction. I didn't know what came next. Not really. But I understood what wasn't going to happen. I wasn't going to disappear. I wasn't going to be the fall person. And Dan? Well, his week was about to get spicy. 2 days passed, then 3. And on the 4th, I got a call from an unrecognized Tokyo landline. I let it ring and ring. Then voicemail. I waited, it pinged. I pressed play. "Hello, this is Mariko Nishida, Executive Administrator to Mr. Watanabe. You are scheduled for a 30-minute confidential debrief next Monday at 9:30 a.m. Location will be sent an hour prior. Please arrive alone." And that was it. No callback number. No confirmation request. Just show up. This was it. The inner circle. The kind of meeting they don't put on calendars. The kind where they already know what you know. They just want to see how you carry it. That Monday morning, I got the address via text. It wasn't a corporate office. It was a nondescript co-learning center in Shibuya, of all places, clean, minimal, filled with freelancers and distracted college students. I arrived early, sat on a bench, waited. At 9:27, a woman in a gray blazer walked out, scanned the plaza, then looked directly at me. "You're her?" I stood. "I guess I am." She motioned for me to follow. No names, no small talk. Just a walk down a hallway, up one flight of stairs, into a glass meeting room that somehow felt both soundproof and invisible at the same time. Inside, Haruto. And one other man. Tall, late 50s, salt and pepper hair, posture like an executive and eyes like an interrogator. He didn't smile, didn't introduce himself, just said, "Tell me your version." So I did. Again, but this time it wasn't about proving innocence, it was about laying the foundation. They interrupted once, asked for a date, a name, a folder title. But mostly, they listened. When I finished, the tall man said something I didn't expect. "You've shown loyalty to the wrong people. That's not your fault." I blinked. Okay. Then Haruto added, but you didn't burn the bridge. You documented it, and that matters. Then came the question I didn't think they'd ask so soon. If we were to offer you a new position, one with higher clearance and more oversight responsibility, would you take it? I didn't even pretend to hesitate. Yes, I said. Absolutely. The tall man nodded once. Haruto gave a tiny smile. Then congratulations, the tall man said. You've just been promoted, off the org chart. He stood, buttoned his jacket, and walked out. Haruto stayed behind. He handed me a folder. One sheet inside, a job title I'd never heard of, a department I didn't know existed. Don't worry, he said. You'll learn fast, and no one's ever going to try to hide your mail again. I walked out of that room with nothing but a folder and a brand new silence. Not the same silence I had after being reassigned. This one had weight. It wrapped around me like armor. I didn't go straight home. I wandered instead through the glassy streets of Shibuya, where crowds streamed past and neon signs blinked at indifferent paces. Everyone rushing somewhere, no one knowing I had just been quietly promoted? I still couldn't believe it. Not because I doubted my own worth, but because the version of me that walked into that Tokyo branch months ago would never have imagined this route. From almost fired to almost framed to off the org chart, if there was a word for that arc, it was unprintable. I finally made it home, dropped the folder on the kitchen table like it was radioactive, and made tea. Because when your reality bends this far off course, you anchor it with something boring, like green tea in a chipped mug. Later that night, Mina messaged again. Heard the news. You in or out? I said yes. Good. Now please don't ghost me if you get your own office with a window. Only if you bring your own chair. She sent a gif of someone saluting, then another of someone shredding a document marked Dan. We didn't need to say more. 2 days later, Dan called me. Yes, Dan. He used his personal number, which was rare. It rang 4 times before I answered. Hey, he said, casual like we were coworkers again. I didn't reply. He filled the silence. I just wanted to say I didn't know how far it would go. That's your defense? I asked. You were just following orders? He sighed. I was scared. You had authority, Dan. You could have stopped it. They told me it was a reassignment, that you were being disruptive, that they were protecting the company. Yeah, I said. And how's that company treating you now? Silence. Then he whispered, I've been demoted. I stayed silent, let him feel that echo. They said it's temporary, but I know what that means. He was unraveling. I didn't call to ask for anything, he said. I'm sorry. There was a time I would have believed him. Now, I just said, Dan, I hope you learn from it. Then I hung up and blocked the number. Weeks passed. My new role came slowly, like watching ink dry on parchment. There were no welcome kits or LinkedIn updates, just briefings, meetings, more gray folders. But each file I read, each thread I followed, it was like peeling back the wallpaper on a house I thought I knew. The Tokyo branch wasn't alone. Other branches, other names, patterns repeated. Only now, I was part of the quiet team cleaning it up. The people you never meet, the ones who don't take credit but make sure the machine keeps running without chewing through decent people. One day, Haruto slid a file across the table and said, This one might be yours. It was labeled Osaka Compliance Reinstatement Interim Lead Recommendation. My name was handwritten in the corner. You trust me with that? I asked. Haruto raised an eyebrow. You handled sabotage, corporate espionage, and handwritten blackmail through tea-stained letters, and you still showed up on time. Yes, I trust you. I smiled. Does it come with a parking spot? No, he said dryly, but it comes with fewer lies. I could live with that. One quiet evening, I visited my old neighborhood. The fog had rolled in again, slow, dreamy, like a blanket someone gently draped over the city. I stopped by Mrs. Ueno's apartment. She answered the door in slippers and a cardigan 2 sizes too large. Oh, you! She looked startled, but then smiled. I didn't know if I'd see you again. I held out a small envelope. Inside was one of the letters. The first one, the one that had started it all. She hesitated. Why are you giving this to me? To remind you, I said gently, that your choice changed everything. She blinked, touched her scarf nervously. I almost didn't bring them. I was so afraid. And yet, you did. She smiled, teary-eyed. Would you like some tea? Only if it's as strong as your conscience. She laughed softly. We sat together in her small living room. Just tea, old furniture, and a silence that finally felt earned. I didn't realize how much had changed until I walked back into the Tokyo headquarters. This time, as someone who wasn't afraid of being erased. No badge check, no redirection to some remote cubicle, just a silent nod from the front desk attendant who didn't even recognize me. It was poetic. I was there for a quiet audit, not the kind with forms and clipboards, but the internal kind. The kind you conduct with your eyes, with memory, with a gut instinct sharpened by betrayal. I passed by the floor where I used to sit. My old desk was empty, not reassigned, not rearranged, just left. Like even the company wasn't sure what to do with the ghost of me. Good, let it stay empty. I met with the interim Tokyo lead, someone from Sapporo, flown in to clean up what the last regime left behind. She was calm, young, and clearly overwhelmed, which meant she was probably going to do fine. I handed her a redacted version of the vendor folder. No names, no accusations, just data and suggestions. She flipped through it like it was written in Morse code, then looked up and whispered, "I didn't know it was this bad." "It was," I said, "but now it's yours to make better." She nodded. "Will they come back?" "Not if you keep everything above the surface." She didn't smile, but she didn't look away either. That's the trick. They always tell you to watch your back, but the real power? It comes when you stop looking over your shoulder and start walking like the hallway belongs to you. Later that week, Mina and I grabbed coffee at a place in Ginza with overpriced pastries and way too many marble surfaces. She had her hair up, her badge tucked in a purse, and that look on her face that said, "I've seen too much this quarter." She sipped her drink and said, "So, advisory board. Not bad for someone who used to color code their spreadsheets." I grinned. I still do. "God help us," she muttered, then added, "Did Haruto tell you what the board really wants?" "Accountability?" I guessed. She shook her head. "Continuity. What's the difference? Accountability burns things down. Continuity learns from the fire." I let that sink in, then asked, "You ever think about leaving?" She blinked. "Every other Tuesday." "Same. But then people like you do things like this, and I think maybe it's not all pointless." High praise. Don't get used to it. We laughed, and it was real. That night, I got one last envelope. No stamp, no return address, just slid under my door like a whisper on thick paper. Inside, a single sheet, typed, no greeting, no name, just a message. You weren't supposed to survive it, you weren't supposed to notice, but now that you have, keep going. I stared at it for a long time. The font was standard, the paper was smooth. But the message? It felt like a passing of the torch. Or maybe a dare. I folded it, slid it into the back of my planner, didn't frame it, didn't panic, just kept going. There's a quiet kind of power in knowing where the bodies are buried, even if you never plan to dig them up. Not literal ones, of course, but the secrets, the lies, the strategic silences that make modern offices run smoother than they should. I used to think ignorance was the price of peace, but now I know the truth is much quieter, especially once you learn how to carry it. Weeks after my new role unofficially began, I got a call. It wasn't from Haruto, or Mina, or anyone from the board. It was from a number I didn't recognize, US-based international code blinking on my screen. I let it go to voicemail. Then curiosity got the better of me. The message was short. "We're reviewing candidates for Southeast Asia liaison. You've been recommended? Let's talk." No name, no company, but I knew. The inner circle didn't send job postings. They sent invitations. It wasn't a promotion, not really. It was another layer. Another ring deeper into the engine room of the company, where the language got more polite and the consequences got sharper. That's the thing they don't tell you about surviving corporate sabotage. If you make it out, they don't always exile you. Sometimes they promote you. Because the best cleaners are the ones who've already been burned. And I had burn marks on every page of my record. I didn't say yes right away. I went back to the neighborhood noodle shop where I used to celebrate small wins, back when promotions meant desk upgrades and free gym access. The same old man was still behind the counter, still remembered my order. When he handed me the bowl, he said, "You look taller." "I think it's just better posture," I joked. But maybe it wasn't. Maybe survival adds inches. In the weeks that followed, the Tokyo branch stabilized. The vendors were revetted, the finance trails cleaned up. Dan quietly disappeared. No announcement, no goodbye cake, Just gone, like a smudge wiped from a window. The new interim lead sent me a thank you card, handwritten, said I'd saved her from a career-ending headache. I didn't save her. I just made sure she didn't drown the way I almost had. Haruto called once more. I hear you're being considered again, he said. Is that a threat or a compliment? He chuckled. With us, it's usually both. You think I'm ready? You were ready the moment you started asking the wrong questions. We paused. Then he added, Do you miss who you were before all this? I thought about it. No, I said. She was smart, but she still waited for approval. He exhaled like that was the right answer. You'll do fine, he said. Just remember, clean hands don't mean clean work, but they do mean you can sleep. And sleep I did, finally. No twitching at 3 a.m., no double-checking locks, no scanning inboxes for ghosted messages. Just sleep, like a person who knows they've earned every scar and every ounce of peace that comes after. Because in the end, this wasn't a story about revenge. It was a story about reclamation, of identity, of agency, of voice. They tried to erase me with silence. I answered with documentation. They tried to fold me into a quiet exit. I stood up with a louder truth, and now I'm not afraid to be seen, even by the ones still hiding.